Welcome back to the Whispers from the Shadows podcast. I'm Super Jimmy.
I'm Ms. Pleasure.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. You go ahead. You got it.
We were doing some bouncing ideas and trying to figure out what we wanted to do. We got an interesting subjective topic. We need to make sure it's known as subjective because this is our personal opinions. Mm-hmm. But it's comparing and contrast to original movies and their reboot counterparts. Mm-hmm. And really looking forward to talking about this because there's some movies that are reboots that I feel like people don't count them as reboots, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because as I was scrolling through a list, because I'll be the first one to admit it. I have a TBI, so my memory is kind of fogged up on certain movies, and then is that a reboot? Is that not? So from us to you guys, as we always like to do, we like to extend out, hey, what are some of your favorite reboots compared to the originals, and vice versa? Do you prefer some of the originals over the reboots? And what I love about horror is that 99.9% of it is subjective because the same things that scare me don't scare everybody else. And I love that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we still go back to one of the most garbage movies I've ever seen, which is fucking It Follows. People swear that movie's scary. And I'm like, you are a little pansy.
I honestly do not know of one scene in that was scary. I
could see where parts would be scary, but I don't see the movie as a whole scary.
Yeah.
I could understand, like I said, concept and stuff like that to be scary, mm-hmm. but for the most part, that movie is just not terrifying anyway.
No, I don't. That's one of those ones that you just watch one time. And you're just oh, that was a thing.
Yeah.
But one of my personal favorites, I like with me personally, I look at the OGs and the reboots in two separate categories. The OGs are what set the foundation for a lot. You have your Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Return of the Dead, and, all your friggin' Romero zombies. And then you have his more modernized ones that came out in the early 2000s. 2004, I think, was Dawn of the Dead. Let me double check. I think I got it.
Well,
yeah, 2004.
Because I think it was the 90s when they did the Tony Todd Night of the Living Dead.
I think you're right.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but it's not as good as the original, obviously. But yeah, it's done in a more modern setting or a more updated setting, which I feel like in some ways is great, other ways is bad. For me personally, one of the movies that I absolutely love that I don't hear a lot of people talking it being a remake is Hollow Man. I love Hollow Man. Kevin Bacon is an absolute maniac and dick in that whole movie. It's fantastic. But it's a very good retelling of Invisible Man. And then also the, I think it was 2019, 2020, whatever, Lee Winnell's version of, and I fell in love with that. But
I liked it.
I'm super biased because it's, Lee Winnell.
Yeah, I was going to say it's Lee Winnell. You can't really but I don't think Lee Winnell or James Wan really have any misses with me personally. I love all of their stuff.
There's only been a handful of stuff that I still have yet to see from them, but biasism will always win with them. I don't sink my life into celebrities and stuff like that. But for some reason, those fucking boys stole me away.
Yeah. Because I love the fact that 1, they're best friends. 2, they're doing something that they're very passionate about. 3, they're both writers and directors. And 4, they are really good storytellers. I think.
I also like some of the risks they take with certain things. When you think of haunted puppets and or stuff like that, you usually go to Puppet Master or old Goosebumps stories or Chucky, which are still fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But Dead Silence was such a different version of that. And I love it. I really, really do. And then I like also the risks they take, with James Wan and Malignant, and Megan, they're not your typical horror movies. I like how there was either a slow burn with some visceral scenes into full on, we're going to flip the entire movie around and it's a whole nother movie.
I agree. But yeah, for me personally, I put the OGs and the remakes into in their own respective categories, but I do have preferences when it comes to certain ones. Let's see, what would be a good one? Ooh, if I were to compare the OG House of Wax for me. I prefer.
Yes. Oh my God.
The new one over the old one, because the old one to me, it has the nostalgia. It has that older, attempting to be more grittier feel to it, but the newer one to me has that more visceral, like when they grabbed the arm of one of the wax dolls and like it just degloved the entire arm. I was like, oh.
Only caveat I have to that, for me, the remake is better than the original, but the one thing that makes me love the original more than the remake is biases Vincent Price.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I will always praise for the original, was the fact that Vincent Price had his hand in that one, and that's why I liked the original, because a lot of friends of mine growing up, they didn't like Vincent Price for some reason. I was like, what do you mean?
You not like Vincent Price? Like, that is one of the like godfathers of horror. Christopher Lee, godfather of horror. Like, come on. Like, how can you not?
Yeah, that's what I asked. And then they were like, well, I like the new House of Wax. I watched the old one, but the new one's better. I was like, granted. Yeah, like me as someone who likes the visual and practical aspects of horror, the new one has it, whereas the old one has like my respect, because Vincent Price was just so good in that one. He was phenomenal.
It's Vincent Price. Like, that man cannot do anything wrong by me, you know? Mm-hmm. But if we're going just with like House of Wax, like what I also really loved about the remake is just how like brutal some parts were.
L5. Okay.
My favorite part, like me and my sister, I will never forget. Me and my sister went to go see that movie when it came out. She took me to go see it. The part that stuck out to us the most was when one of the brothers super glues the girl's mouth shut, and she's trying to get her brother's attention, and she's just sticking her finger through the fucking grate, and he just takes the fucking wire cutters and just, it's like,
yeah, I was like, ugh.
So good. And you're just like, that's so fucked. You're like so good though. Like, it's just the small things like that. I thought it was done very, very, very well.
Yeah, I would have to agree, because like you said, it's the little things in that one that like got me. Whereas like
those updates, you know, like it's able to push a better boundary than they were, 50 years ago or 40 years ago at that time, I think. Because House of Wax came out in like early 70s. I don't remember.
I'll Google it real quick.
It's like late 60s, early 70s, I want to say.
Did the
because I remember it being a dated movie, because I think the original Fly is like 50s.
I think so. Yeah, there it is. Let's see, 53. The original House of Wax came out. Wow.
Damn, I was way off. Okay, so it's definitely okay. So it's a good 50-year difference. Okay, I was way off on that one. Holy shit!
The new one came out 05. The old one came out 53. So
it's a 52-year difference,
Yeah.
Like, definitely able to push the boundaries a lot more than you could back then.
Yeah.
Another one that like, go ahead.
I was going to say, plus the practical effects and the newer one were a lot more updated, I would say.
Yeah, no, they were definitely done really, really well. Like I said, a lot of the modernizations I really don't like, but very, very specific examples that I do like is when they implement for the original Invisible Man coming up with the serum to turn invisible kind of thing, but it turned him mad. Yeah. Very, very like mad scientist stuff. Cool. The modern one, like Lee Winnell's version specifically that I'm talking about, I love, is that instead of the serum or syringe kind of thing, it's like he used technology to bend the light and everything like that to become invisible. Like they were able to modernize that aspect, which I do appreciate. Hollow Man went back to that original standard of like a serum that turns you invisible. So, and that's what drove him mad, but it was a good updated version of it, and a very fucked one too.
Yeah, because let's see if I can. It's been so long since I saw the original Hollow Man, because I don't remember how the newer one ended, but I remember how the one with Kevin Bacon ended, where he fell into the shaft and he was
up. And he's just very fucking muscly looking.
Yeah, like that part where he was like still like burned and trying to claw at the girl. I was just like, as a kid,
done well.
Yeah, and then in the original, I think they just in the original, the Invisible Man, I think they just shot him. I really don't remember, because that was that was like
pre-60s.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
because I think one of the last monster movies was
it came from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, might have been Creature. Yeah, might have been Creature. That was late 40s, mid 40s. Because I know like Wolfman was like early 40s ish. Yeah. Because I know 1930 was was it 30 or 33? I think it was 30 was Dracula. 31 or 32 was Frankenstein. 35, 36 was Mummy, I think. Because I was also with Boris.
Yeah, Boris Karloff.
And then it went into Lon Chaney's Wolfman, into Creature of Black Lagoon. If I'm not mistaken, that was the order that they were released. I don't remember specific years other than Dracula.
Please feel free to correct us if you want to.
If you know, I'm trying my best not to like look up a lot of stuff because I'm trying to remember how much I remember by memory, which is never good.
Yeah, same.
But it's those like small little updates and stuff like that, like to modernization. Like we were actually, what started this whole thing is I came up with the idea of just like comparing the Dracula movie specifically. Because like when you take Bela Lugosi and you compare it to like Gary Oldman and Bram Stoker's, or I like the movie, it's not good by any means, but I like the movie with Gerard Butler, Dracula 2000. Like that was a good one to that, but it's like a very different breed than the original Dracula. Yeah. Or even if you watch like Dracula Untold or any of like almost any other like vampire-ish movie, it's so distant nowadays. I mean, back in the 40s, 50s, and I would say roughly about 60s, it kind of kept it into that very old medieval castle, Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, just vampire. And then it transitioned into just like vampires everywhere and not really Dracula himself.
Yeah. I know this isn't really like a remake, but the what was it? The new one that just came out not too long ago. Oh, what was it?
Actor.
It was a new movie about Dracula on the boat.
Oh, Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Thank you. The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I think that was honestly a very good telling of how Dracula came to England. Like there's a lot of like,
I can see that
emotional terror and psychological terror, because at first, like, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of like things that the crew are witnessing and noticing and stuff like that the captain doesn't believe, and that they're not sure if it's happening or not, and it's just like a whole lot of like emotions behind it closer to the end, because one person survives. Again, spoiler alert. One person survives out of the whole voyage of like, I think it was like 18 people or something like that.
I don't remember how many people were on the ship. I only saw it once in theater, and it was good. I just wish they did more with it personally, but I do appreciate for what it was. They took a couple risks in it, which I was really shocked with.
I like the look of Dracula because the one scene that I really, really liked in the whole thing was where the one guy was climbing the rigging on the side of the ship. Scene.
Yeah.
And to get away from him, and he turned around and it looked up at him and just smiled. And then you seen all the teeth and the eyes. And I was just like, oh, I like that.
That's done very well.
Yeah. I thought that was a good retelling. Yes. Versus like, I hate to say it, but Nosferatu, because Nosferatu is like
I am so nervous for that. Oh my God. I'm going to judge that remake so harshly.
I'm so hopeful
to the movie.
Because what's funny is that it's a remake of a remake, because they redid Nosferatu in 1973, 3. I'm gonna stick with 3. 3 is my final answer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they did Nosferatu the Vampire in 73. That one was a more modernized version of Nosferatu. So it was a little bit more horror focused rather than like the dude just kind of like creeping in through your window and like entrancing you, and then you reading like the subtitles of what's happening and stuff like that. So there, but I'm hopeful for the remake. Honestly,
I have an ungodly high expectation for that movie.
Who's directing it and who wrote it?
I don't remember who directed or wrote it. All I know is that Skarsgård is Nosferatu, which that makes me hopeful. But my problem is that it's an almost 100-year difference from.
Oh God, yeah.
But with Nosferatu, what made that movie so fucking horrifying was, again, it's a silent film. And the fact that, like, how do you convey horror? Like in the 20s, it was very, very easy to do that. And well, I shouldn't say easy. It wasn't easy, but doing a silent film and scaring people with like dialogue and sounds and visuals, as opposed to like an actual conversation and everything else. bringing that into a modern setting, like especially right nowadays, I feel is going to be so fucking hard to convey the horror that movie did. Just much like when Frankenstein was released, the makeup on Boris Karloff fucking scared the shit of people in theaters. Like people fainted.
Yeah.
And that was in the 30s. Like, that movie is like super tame by today's standards.
Looking at the info that I got for the new Nosferatu film, I'm a little hopeful, not just because of the Skarsgård, but because Robert Eggers.
Okay. It is Eggers.
He's the writer and the director. The Witch.
I still need to see The Witch. I absolutely loved The Northman. Oh, yeah. My God. Northman, I fell in love with immediately.
I enjoyed it. The Witch,
I heard it's a very slow burn. I have yet to see it though, but I heard it's a very, very slow burn. And I always counter that argument with like, I love Zombie. I absolutely love most of his stuff, but like Lords of Salem is like an hour and 40 minutes. And I felt like I was sitting there for 4 hours watching that movie.
It was a very slow burn, but when it got to the scary parts, it was very scary. Like it made me like I like to be scared in movies. So like for me to actually like scream from a scary movie takes a little bit.
Takes a lot bit for me,
but in
game wise, a little bit at times.
Game aspect, it could just be a noise, and I'm like, hey. Yeah, but in Lords of Salem, Zombies version, I loved it just for the simple fact that like I was the only one in the theater that actually like screamed. I have to watch it again in order to remember because I watched it. It was so long ago. But
I think the last time I saw a movie was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I don't remember.
It was going on 10 for me.
Yeah,
but I watched it in theaters, so
yeah. I think one movie that does like the remake aspect and I felt is better, and this is just my personal opinion, I know a lot of people don't like it, or they prefer the original, is the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I absolutely loved that remake. It followed close enough to a lot of the original aspects, but changed certain things and updated certain things that I felt like were more terrifying.
I can agree to that. I'm not a big, and you can ask anybody this, I'll tell you straight up, I'm not a big Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan just because I don't like how to say this without sounding like a dick. To me, Leatherface was a less scarier version of Jason because yes, he was strong. Yes, he was quiet. Yes, he was quick and very like methodical on like how he wanted to attack. Like he wouldn't just like, be standing at the end of the driveway. No, he'd let you think that you'd gotten away and get into town and he'd be in the back of the van the entire time, just waiting for you to stop at the gas station or something like that, whereas like Jason would just punch through the wall, grab you by the back of your head and just pull you back through and then fold you in half in a bed frame or something.
Voorhees is a very like more intimidating monster. I will agree with you on that. But like, I just love like just on how like I always talk about the very specific scene of how much more brutal it felt. Like
yes.
Dude gets his leg cut off, gets put on a hook. You're just in there going, wow, that really fucking sucks. But the part that does it for me is just the fact that he grabs a handful of salt and just shoves it right onto that fucking wound. And like immediately in the theater, like everyone was just kind of like, ooh, now you just hear me go, oh, fuck that.
And what made it worse for me was the fact that he didn't just grab like regular salt, like, like sea salt. It was rock salt, the kind that you got to like grind. And he just slams it on there with his bare hand and then wraps it up. And then you're just like, oh.
Dude, I could like, that's like where like an empath feeling came in. Like you could just feel that burning sensation. I was like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, your butt puckers a little bit and you're like, oh.
It hurts just thinking about it.
What I really liked about it was that one, like, I can't say I don't like because I do respect Leatherface as one of the OG original horror movie slasher icon. Yeah. I don't like the originals because of it seemed like they were like, they're like, hey, you know what? We have this famous killer. This is the idea behind the killer. And we're going to take away, we're not going to give him the ability to talk or move fast or any of that stuff. Whereas like the Reboot made it to where he was running. He was,
more vocal, like you could hear noises more and stuff.
Yeah, he was more believable, and you were like, okay, this is something I could see happening in the middle of rural wherever. And
they were in Texas.
I think it was one of those states. It was one of the bigger ones, either Alaska or Texas.
Can't remember.
Takes you forever to drive through. I might have had Dallas somewhere in there, but with Leatherface, when did that one come out? Hold on, I got it pulled up. 03. I keep forgetting. That one came out in 03. The scene that got me, if you haven't watched this 20-year-old version or this 20-year-old reboot, you're doing yourself that way. Well, if you haven't watched this 20-year-old reboot, you are doing yourself an injustice, because this is the only version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I will say I liked, just for the simple fact that when they saved the girl in the beginning of the movie, it was a girl in the beginning of the reboot, and she pulls the gun out of her. Yeah, thank you. I was like, how can I say this without without pissing someone off? when she pulls it out of her yoo-hoo and just puts it in her mouth and blammo, I'm like, they can put that up there? I was like, I didn't know people had a secret pocket. And then, but
everybody's got a secret pocket if you think about it. But I know what you mean.
But yeah, that one. Because back then I was all about gore and what can bring out that visceral, oh God, feeling out of me. Whereas when I got later on to life and where I got a little bit older, I started liking psychological more than I liked the visceral stuff, because I watched one movie that was a remake, and it's called I Spit on Your Grave. If you were squeamish, faint, for lack of a better word, faint of heart, and don't like Human Centipede, do not watch the reboot, because the scene where she shoved the shotgun up one guy's butt because of an SA that happened, I totally understand why she did it. That movie was one of those ones where I was like, you know what? She's right for doing that. But ow. When she shoved the shotgun up his ass, I was like, oh God, that was my initial response. If like I said, if you were one of those people that just loves the visceral, if you liked Human Centipede, if you liked Cannibal Holocaust. Let's see, what else could I compare it to? If you liked
pure blood and gore, you could also do a Green Inferno.
No, yeah. If you like Green Inferno, if you like that type of blood and gore aspect of it, watch the reboot of I Spit on Your Grave. If you don't, watch the original. The original is a lot more tame, because that one came out in the 70s, I want to say.
Yeah, you've praised that movie. I still have yet to see it. I do need to watch that movie, because I want to see what it's like. Because
it's so rough.
Used to watch horror movies for just blood, gore, and shock value. I don't know what it is. I think that's the teenage years in everybody almost. They just want to see the most depraved in some ways, or just gore.
Oh boy, one man, one jar.
Don't get me wrong, I love my blood and gore, but as I got older, it was more of I actually like the behind the scenes, the making, the prosthetics, the sounds. That's where a lot of my love for horror movies comes now. I want to see a lot more of that stuff. But when there's a well-written one, again, the movie behind me, Immaculate, there's something about it that just keeps drawing me into a lot more horror movies, whether they be great or bad, subjective.
Yeah.
Another example for that for me is Last House on the Left. The original one by Wes is good. It still holds up today. It's pretty fucked and everything. But the reboot has one scene specifically. It's an SA scene. And I still remember to this day being with my best friend, and we were watching that movie. That scene happened. We couldn't break away from the screen, because it was you felt so disgusted watching it, but you couldn't look away from it. And so we were literally sitting there going do we have to walk away now? Do we just leave? Because it felt so genuine.
Wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. It felt so genuine. It fucked. And the rest of the movie is still pretty good. I still like the original more, but that scene makes that movie great for me, because it's that unsettling, fucked, I shouldn't be watching this feeling that is really, really good about it. And that's where again, the dedication of like the fans and like the people that love the genre bring to the table. And like when it comes to remakes, when you push that envelope or make it like more your own film, I love, because it's the same way how I feel with how Hills Have Eyes. Wes Craven's original is done very, very well, but how visceral and bloody the newer one is, or the like, I think it's like 07, 06 version. I remember being in high school watching that movie. I just love like the remakes.
Oh, agreed.
Bring up more blood and gore of it, which I loved, but it's also still keeping true to the original and still like preserving that.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. The one thing I will praise, and I hate to say it, the one thing I will praise about I Spit on Your Grave is that everything is done practically. Even the SA scene, if you...
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, like it's like Last House on the Left. It's practical and it's happened, but like you're like, it's like really hard for your brain to separate. This is a movie. What I'm watching is fake, but it's done so well. You're like, this is really happening. That they just like fucking filmed this and let it go, huh? Didn't they? This is fucked.
I was. Let me put it to you this way: I've never watched the original all the way through, because the amount of shock and awe in the reboot for I Spit on Your Grave was so like real feeling with me that after we finished that movie, I've only ever watched it one time. And this was back in 2012, 2013, that I've never ever watched it again. I immediately threw the DVD that I spent $20 of my hard-earned PFC money on right in the trash. Like this movie, I watched it all the way through with a couple buddies of mine that couldn't go home because of on a 96, which is a 4-day weekend for people not in the military. We watched it in the barracks, and in like the first 5 minutes of the movie, that scene happens. We watched it all the way through just to see how she got her revenge, because she does, spoiler warning, she does get a revenge on all of the men involved. Each one is fucked up as the last one, and it just gets worse as the movie goes on, what she does to these men. But the worst part of it all is that SA scene in the beginning, because it was like a car accident with like the most gore you could believe. And it is like, as much as I liked Last House on the Left, that scene pales in comparison.
And hearing that's like makes me not want to watch it, because I felt so fucking gross watching Last House on the Left reboot. But like it makes me want to watch it because I still want to see just like, how is this movie? Because there's a couple movies I've been told about that are like either for the sake of gore that are really, really good that I need to watch, or like they're like really fucked in that sense. Like I want to see how fucked. Like my curiosity's peaked, you know?
Like on a scale of, let's see, the most fucked up movie, like the most fucked up movie I've ever watched, I would have to say would have to be that one, as far as like horror goes. And well, as far as like realistic horror, I could see this happen, but the practical effects in that movie just make you feel like so gross. And this is coming from someone who spent 10 years in the Marine Corps, and, you know, like has like that thickened skin to where, you know, not much like, it's like, oh, that's blood. Oh, that's guts. Oh, that's gore. It's like, okay, cool. Where is this movie going with that? This one, I was just like I sat back and covered my mouth, and I was just like, oh my God. I like looked at my friends and I was like, do we need to call somebody? Because I feel like this movie's illegal, and it was sold at Walmart for like $20 at the time. And it wasn't in the bargain bin yet. It was still in the aisle row. And we went in there and we were like, hey, let's grab some snacks. Let's grab some beers. Let's grab some sodas. Let's grab some movies. And we're just going to have a baller weekend. And that was the first, like, we fucked up because everyone was like, yeah, pop that in. And I was like, all right, cool. So I popped it in my buddy's PS3, and that's what we watched first. Oh boy, did we fuck up. But yeah, that one, the reboot of that one is way worse than the original to me, but not in the fact that it was bad, but in the fact of it was just that much more unsettling and more realistic and modernized. It was just,
I fully feel you on that one.
So
another one though, like I was going to say that I love more than the original, and it's like how you was House of Wax, was The Fly. Like Cronenberg's The Fly. The original, again, biasism because Vincent Price, classic. Mm-hmm. But the deterioration of Jeff Goldblum in the remake, and just how well it's done with the prosthetics, the animatronics, even the gore factor in that as well, like, is just so amplified. And yeah, it's a slow burn of a movie, but that remake is done fucking fantastic.
I like how the one factor that always makes me like rewatch that whenever I have the chance, the Jeff Goldblum version, is the fact that it goes from like a more tame Jeff Goldblum as he deteriorates into like regular Jeff Goldblum.
Just the constantly can't stop talking and has this like just comment on everything as it's happening. Yeah. But that movie has like, I still like in certain movies nowadays, like me and my mother, when we go watch some of our favorite horror movies or like things like that, because that's a movie that me and my mother bonded over, was The Fly, Jeff Goldblum's version, David Cronenberg. When we went to go see Prometheus, like, when spoilers for who has never seen Prometheus, the way they get infected and everything, like you see like little deterioration moments happening to said characters, and it's very reminiscent of The Fly, seeing him like lose his teeth, fingernails, hair,
the skin drooping.
Yeah, you just start to see the man come monster aspect, and we still call back to The Fly when we see stuff like that. Like, it's definitely not the same type of movie, but like that aspect of it. I mean, I guess it's sci-fi, so they both count in that same regard.
That's fair. That's a fair comparison, honestly. The one genre that I honestly like, or that I liked in the early 2000s, was when America was bringing over Japanese movies and then remaking them into American horror movies. You had The Grudge, The Ring, Shudder. What was the other one?
I think it was just like Europe and Asia in general, because that's also where we got Quarantine. Yep. We also got, I want to say it's Wreck.
Let the Right One In.
Let the Right One In. There was a couple others that got brought over here that were American horror. And it's always funny when you look at different horror around the world, because like, for like the West of society, for us, it's more of like just blood, gore, and like, unfortunately, either creatures and or humans being like the most fucked thing. And then like on the Eastern hemisphere of everything, it's just like very spiritual horror,
Yeah, I would agree. I can't remember if it was The Ring or The Grudge that they brought the original director on board. They were like, hey, we'd like to make an American version of your movie over here, but we want you to direct it again. And they were just like, all right, sure. And like, so you had like the same director on board for both films, both the American and the Japanese version of it. And I cannot remember if you Google this, do you feel like correcting me? Please let me know. I can't remember if it was The Grudge or The Ring that they did that on. I want to say it was The Grudge, but I'm not entirely sure. But I do love the fact that they were like, hey, we loved how you did your version. Come do it again. And what I've also noticed is that like when it came to The Ring and The Grudge, those two movies actually got me, this is going to sound terrible, those two movies got me introduced to foreign horror. And I love don't get me wrong, I love the American reboots of them, but I also love the Japanese versions of them a little bit more, because to me, the Japanese versions focus more on the horror aspect and like the setting and tone shift of the movie, because if you watch the Grudge, if you watch the Japanese Grudge, you notice as like she's getting stalked by, what was the lady's name? Started with a Y. I cannot remember. The ghost of the lady from the house, as she was getting stalked by her, the lighting progressively changes. It goes from like this bright and sunny kind of like outside to like this more opaque, washed out background when she goes outside of the house and stuff like that. And then like tones in the hospital are different every time she goes there. It's like, it's more of a visual shift rather than like, I'm about to die shift, Or like the American version is just like, is she going to make it? Is she going to make it? Is she going to make it? Shit. And
I see where you're coming from on that. Like The Grudge and The Ring were never my type of horror movies. I get a lot of shit for that. They're good movies. They're just not my type. That's all.
That's fair.
I will tell you one that's hard for me to choose a quote unquote favorite, because the original is my favorite because of biases for a lot of reasons, but it also kind of like just set this director on like a quirky path that I love how they do things. And then the reboot, I just love for how brutal it is. And it's The Evil Dead.
That's fair.
Like, the original bias because, you know, Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, yada, 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 yada.
That's fair.
And I know it's campy by today's standards, and it was campy back then, but it was still genuinely horrifying for some people. Like I have an uncle, that movie still scared him. He never watches horror movies, and it's because of that movie. And
that's also fair.
And it's like, you can tell it's Sam Raimi, just like how he does everything. And when you see him directing anything, like him and Bruce Campbell are always working side by side in some way, shape, form, or another. And the fact that like Raimi has that like very, very strong directing style. And it just like, I love, again, I got Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. Like I love the Evil Dead franchise because of that. But the remake is just so fucking gory and bloody and fucked in so many ways that is just, I love it for how brutal it is. And just like, again, the Necronomicon being like wrapped in tar in a garbage bag and barbed wire is so fucking clean. The chick sawing her face off. Oh yeah. Hippie Jesus gets fucked up. Like it's so bad. But
I feel so bad for him.
Oh, I do too. Don't get me wrong. But like, that's what I love about the remake is how brutal it is. The original is always my favorite. Like I will choose the original more times just because it's the cult classic that it is. We have a cult following for that franchise because of it. And like a lot of people love Bruce Campbell because of that franchise. But the reboot being just so fucking bloody is just so fucking good.
Oh my God, yes. Like trigger warning to anyone that hasn't seen it. There is an essay scene that involves
nature.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. like the fact that it like,
and updating it that way was like the way they just everything to update into that modern time, still keeping true to like just like not the basic of all this like group retreat kind of thing. Like they actually put a good reason, like, you know, rehab being a very strong thing, intervention being a strong thing. Why are all these people in this woods? Like why would we put ourselves in this situation? We're trying to help a friend. And the original was like, let's go camping together.
Yeah. And like, whereas I like the original because they never showed Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. They never showed the actual like entity. Yeah. They never showed the actual entity.
In the reboot, they did that still because that's why the camera does its whole like zooming thing. But yeah, I know what you mean because you get the demon at the end.
Yeah, and you get different visuals as well. Because, like, if I remember correctly, specifically in the in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, when like the entity was coming, it was just the camera zipping through the woods. Whereas this one's like the camera zips through the woods and then focuses in on an object or focuses in on a person or does this versus, you know, just.
Yeah. Because no, that's what I'm saying. That's like Sam Raimi's style. And the things that they did change slightly or updated, it was done very, very well. But like that's where, like I said, it's like split down the middle. I love both of them equally, but in their own different regards. But like the new one being so fucking bloody, like I said, when me and my brother went to go see that, it still like sticks in my head because we were both just like, this movie's on a high pedestal. Let's see how this movie is going to be. And then the opening happened and me and my brother were like, all right, yeah, this movie's fucking great already.
Yeah. The one part that unsettled me, well, aside from the part where she gets possessed, was where she's like sitting up from underneath, like, because if you remember, when she's in the cellar versus like the first one where it's kind of like more campy a little bit. There's a little comedy in there where she's like talking, or, you know, like in the original, if I remember correctly, it's been so long since I watched it, where she's talking like crap, like, oh, you can't get it up. That's why you're out here. Blah, 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 blah. Come here, pretty boy. And then like
berating them.
And then the other one where like when I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Hippie Jesus. I think this was after he got shot in the face by the nails. The one person flings open the floorboards, and this is where you get the meme if you're on TikTok of come down here, pretty boy, and let me suck your cock. And that's where that came from. And I like that one scene where you see her and then she like fades into the darkness and he's standing there with the door open. He's like, nope, shuts the door. I'm like, that is the most human response I've ever seen in a horror movie, where they're just like,
there's demons over here. Hell no.
There's demons in the cellar. I ain't going down there.
Yeah, no, it's just the way they did so much with that movie. Like I said, the brutality aspect of it is what made me really love it.
Poor hippie Jesus, that dude.
For real.
Oh my God. He was a trooper though. I'll give him that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like here's one for me that I know my friend Cameron, we had a very, very heated debate on this. One movie that's like a very questionable one that was whether it be good or bad reboot was from Lon Chaney Jr.'s The Wolfman to Benicio del Toro's The Wolfman.
Ooh.
Obviously, love Lon Chaney. The Wolfman's cult classic. Fucking love that movie. Fantastic. The reboot, it's one of the, I love how bloody and gory it was. And I love when they had the suits on, but like the CG transformation is what really killed it for me. I still love the movie for what it is and will still watch it. But like it's a CG transformation. How many times have we seen that throughout the years of like werewolf movies? And then you go back to the original practical effects, like stop motion. Well, not really stop motion, but like frame for frame, like slowly showing the wolf possession overtake is a classic. And to like not even attempt that in the movie really disappointed me.
The one thing I will give to the reboot over the original is Sir Anthony Hopkins. Just I am biased when it comes to Anthony Hopkins. Any horror movie, any like what was that movie that he did not too long ago where he was like a priest of some kind?
The Right.
Yes. I love the
thing about that movie because I still have yet to see it.
It's good. Like there's some parts of it I didn't like, but the fact that like Anthony Hopkins is like acting his ass off in that movie, I loved. Yeah. I loved it. And
when I see some of my favorite actors in horror movies, like I know exactly what you mean. Like I still haven't seen the whatever Russell Crowe Catholic one that came out, but I still want to see it just because I like Russell Crowe and I want to see him in a horror movie like that. Same thing for like with a lot of people, Harrison Ford with What Lies Beneath.
Yeah.
They're completely out of role for him.
For the Russell Crowe, what was that? The Pope's Last Exorcist? The Pope's Exorcist. I liked it. But the only thing I will say about it, that not to spoil it for you, is that Russell Crowe was the one redeeming factor of that entire
That's what
movie.
I've been hearing. It's one of those kind of films, but I still want to see it just because, again, like the biasism that I like for Russell Crowe makes me want to see it.
Yeah, because when I watched it, I was like, oh boy, Russell Crowe is, he's out of his element. He's not an action. He's not a comedy. He's doing like one of his first ever horror roles that I can think of. If I'm wrong, again, tell me. But because I don't think there's too many Russell Crowe horror films out there. But
I don't think so either.
When it came to that, he was the one, if not only, redeeming qualities for that entire movie. Because he was acting as best he could, but is what it is.
Yeah, no fair. I still just want to see it to watch it. One of my favorites. So that is, I wonder which one's my favorite. So there's very, very iterations of like alien come to Earth. You have the original, The Thing from Another Planet.
Yeah.
Which is good in its own regards, and I love it. It's a cult classic. But then you get John Carpenter's The Thing. And if this is the first time you're actually hearing this episode, you're about to hear how I am when it comes to John Carpenter for one, and specifically The Thing as well.
He fangirls like crazy.
Because it's a fantastic fucking movie.
It is. Like I can't praise that movie enough.
The actors in that movie, just the blood and gore, the whodunit, the mystery, the psychological aspect of it. Like just there's so much about that movie that I fucking love. And obviously I'm going to choose that one over the original, which is one of the very few times that will happen. If
I'm not wrong, they had, oh God, what's his name? He's a big horror movie props expert. What is his name?
Is it the one you always forget?
Yes. Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, he had his hand in that. A couple of other like big names when it came to like practical effects was in that as well.
It's so Oh, The Thing is like a movie that I will never not stop talking about. If I can find an opportunity to talk about that movie, I always fucking will.
I honestly forgot that was a remake. I really did. And I have it pulled up in front of me too.
It's technically a remake. A lot of people associate it with as the remake because they are very, very similar aspects of it, but it's not a dedicated remake. That's why I said technically. It's almost like what's one of the ones that is like based on, but not really the movie. Well, Nosferatu and Dracula are prime examples too. Nosferatu was supposed to be Dracula, but they couldn't get the copyrights for it, so they just named it Nosferatu. But it's Dracula.
And what's funny is that it had nothing to do with Bram Stoker, because by the time that Nosferatu was coming out, Bram Stoker. That's the original author. He had already passed away. It was his widow that didn't want a movie made about it. She just wanted it to remain the book. But here's the thing is that when she sued Nosferatu, that's the movie that everybody has seen stemmed from one single copy that got saved by some person a long time ago. This is something that I did research on. So pardon me while I fangirl just a little bit. If you've ever watched Nosferatu from the 20s, excuse me.
That was a silent film.
It was that if you've ever watched a version of it, a copy of it, anything like that, it stems from one saved version of it that was saved by a person that was working either for a studio, a theater, or something like that, because she sued the company that made it, won the case, had all copies destroyed except for one. So because of that one person from a long time ago, over 100 years ago, was like, you know what? I'm taking this home with me. Because of that one person, we all got to see a version of that same version of Nosferatu. And it's not like, and there's not too many instances of that in movies. And that's what I love about the original silent film version of Nosferatu, is the fact that it all stemmed from one singular saved copy. The music, everything was saved by this one person because he didn't want it to get destroyed, because it is he or they, because I don't know if it was a man or a woman, they saw that it was going to be an original, like, cinematic piece of history. Cinematic piece of history.
And it definitely is. It is still talked about today.
It's to me personally, I think it laid the bedrock for vampires as we know it, because you have the sunlight weakness, the garlic, the cross, the stake, the silver, because when he touched the candlestick holder and he just like pulled his hand back, and it was just like in like the captioning, it was like the creature can't touch silver and can't be seen in mirrors. That's where we got like a lot of the more stereotypical vampire mythos.
Yeah. One for me that I feel like I love it. I know a lot of people don't, but there's a lot of biasism that goes into me loving this movie. I like how there's not been a very good Frankenstein remake, in my opinion, but I feel like one thing that kind of honors
I got a couple.
The idea of like Frankenstein and how they did everything is in Van Helsing, the one with Hugh Jackman. I know it's a Universal movie and they are the ones that have the monsters and all that. Like they have the original movie monsters rights mostly. I like how they did the telling of that with Frankenstein, because most of the Frankenstein movies that I see or have seen just don't do really well or just don't feel good unless you do the spoof version, which then, you know, Young Frankenstein, Mel Brooks is like my all-time favorite version of it.
I love that one. Yeah. Mel Brooks was so, I don't know if is he still alive? I'm gonna Google that.
Yes, he is.
Okay, he is. I loved Mel Brooks, Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs, like all of his spoofs. They were fucking gold. They are goated to me.
Dude, I fucking Mel Brooks is such a fucking gem. Like, oh, I love that man. He's still kicking. He's gonna be like late 90s, I do believe, because he's been around for a while. I want to say he's like 1996.
I think he's mid to late 90s, definitely.
So but like other than that, like I said, Van Helsing, I love how they did the Frankenstein adaptation of it being this monstrous, like futuristic thing while still trying to be human, but you can tell they don't fit in.
There's two versions that I absolutely love of Frankenstein, and they're two very different versions, mind you. I watched it on the USA Network back when, like cable TV was like in everybody's home, which was Dean Koontz's version of Frankenstein, which is 4 or 5 books, and I've only read 3. I can never get my hands on like the last. I can never get my hands on the last 1 or 2 because I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 version of the series. I liked that version of it because it takes Frankenstein from way back in the medieval period, like like when, well, not even medieval period, from Mary Shelley's time when she wrote the book in Transylvania to modern day 2002 or 2003.
See, I never read that series, so that I did not even know about.
It's good. I like the book version of it. I like the short series of it that came out on the USA Network. I've never been able to find the show of it because I think it was 4 seasons because they did a mini series of it like they did with the original Stephen King's It.
What miniseries?
And I can't remember. I think it was like 1 or 2 seasons of it. And they told like the entire Dean Koontz story of Frankenstein. And I really enjoyed that. And then I, Frankenstein. I like those two.
Aaron Eckhart?
Yes.
I never saw that, but I felt like turning it into an action movie in a modern time kind of thing was a little weird, but I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it.
It is weird. It's campy in some spots, but it's kind of an action horror because it tells you about it makes.
Well, I know it's his incarnation, like in the 1800s, yes. And then him kind of like going through with time into the modern setting. I know that aspect of it.
Yes, it goes from the 1800s to modern times, like you said, turns it into, and it is an action piece between the gargoyles, Frankenstein's monster, and demons. And it's like, I think it's a good retelling of it, but it takes its own liberties and takes risks where I liked it. A lot of people that I've talked to that have seen it didn't like it. Same thing with the Dean Koontz version of it, because in Dean Koontz's version, the whole reason why he created Frankenstein his monster way back when, was to figure out a way to make it to where humans had access to immortality. Mm-hmm. That's the whole basis of why he created the monster. After he creates the monster, he figures out how to do it. After he does it, he replicates it with himself, and then he starts making. He made his own. He created his own wife. He created his own children. He has like a multi-billion-dollar company, and he's still the same Victor Frankenstein monster in the story because he's the bad guy. Mm-hmm. His monster that he created in that one is well-spoken, well-educated, super strong, working with a detective to figure out like murders and stuff like that. So it's kind of a murder mystery, whodunit. Victor Frankenstein is the bad guy. I liked it. I've never been able to find the series of it, but the book is good.
I'll have to look into that then. I'll definitely have to look into that.
So those are 2 reboots of Frankenstein that I really like, for Mary Shelley's and Boris Karloff's iteration of it.
Okay. I'll definitely have to tune into those. Because there really hasn't been like a Creature of the Black Lagoon specific reboot as far as I can tell. There has been, but like they're still like one and the same. I feel like it's kind of meh on that. What's another like reboot that? Oh, we were talking about The Omen.
I was just thinking about that one.
Yeah, The Omen was I love the original, but I do like how much more like brutal and darker the reboot was, and it also really introduced me to. It was like 06. Yeah, because how can you forget, man? It came out June 6th, 2006.
You know what's really funny? My birthday is June 5th, right? So when 2006 rolled around and I was getting ready to turn 14, and I was getting ready to like for my birthday, like everybody was making the joke, like, because around the time that they announced it, all my closest friends that knew my birthday were like, oh, Jimmy's the Omen. Jimmy's the Omen. I was just like, no, I'm one day off. I'm 6'5". This is 6'6". So no, but the day of my birthday, I had the worst, like, I still remember that birthday because it was fucking terrible. I had the worst luck. I went to bed on June 4th, completely fine. I woke up the next morning, pardon my French, and sorry if you're a little squeamish, throwing up my guts, like just nonstop. I hadn't eaten anything before I had gone to bed that would have caused this to happen. It was just, I woke up just freaking just, then I went to go over to a friend's house to hang out with a buddy of mine, his girlfriend, my girlfriend, and a couple of other friends. And I was feeling fine the entire time. His dad went to light up the barbecue. The propane tank fell over, and it happened so quick that nobody noticed it, like until I was screaming. The tank had a leak in the hose, and a spark of something somehow, some way caught fire and caught me on fire. I was wearing a really loose fit Janko jeans t-shirt.
Oh my God, the style. Oh my God.
I loved that shirt. It was so comfy. Caught that shirt on fire and it burned the back of my right arm. If I'm reversed, I swear this is my right hand. This is my left hand. There's my wedding ring to prove it. This is my left hand. Burnt the back of my left arm, part of my back. And then a part of the polyester had like liquefied and stuck to me. So I then had to be rushed to the hospital and treated for, I can't remember how it goes. I think worst is like the least, or the worst is the least. First is the least, and like third and fourth are the worst.
Yes, because a first degree burn is not too bad. Second degree burn, like blisters, could use medical attention. Third degree burn is like you need grafting.
Yeah, I had to get treated for first and second degree burns on parts of my back and my arm because of the polyester in the shirt. So they just kind of like put the cooling gel on me and just kind of like slapped like some of that healing gauze that like helps the skin breathe along with like the cooling gel and stuff like that on me, and just like kind of kept me for a little bit. And we're like, all right, you're fine. You can go home now. I had to then wait for my mom at the hospital to come pick me up. Got home and then went and laid down and forgot to take the cooling gel off, go wash it off with cold water or cool water and light soap, and had fallen asleep and gotten the shirt
all stuck together.
The sheets, the blanket, the pillow, everything was stuck to my back. Like it looked like I got tarred and feathered. Like my girlfriend even came over to my house later on that day to check up on me. And I was just peeling myself off of the bed. And then the next day I was perfectly fine, minus the burns. I was perfectly fine. And I found, like, I had gone to Walmart with my girlfriend and her mom, found $50 in the parking lot. I had like walked into Walmart and gotten like free samples from back when that was a thing, gotten free samples from when they opened the bakery at my local Walmart. It was just like the next day was just great. And I'm just like, maybe I am the Omen. So yeah, like the Omen holds a special place in my heart, both the OG and the reboot. And I liked the reboot because it was more modernized. Like a lot of the stuff was practical, and they used CGI where they needed to, and the CGI is a little dated because it came out in 2006.
Yeah, but it's still it's done very, very well. I like it for many reasons, but it also introduced me to like Lee Shaver as an actor, because I really never even knew about him till that movie, and he became one of my favorite actors. He's been in a lot of films that I absolutely love.
And I'm kind of upset because they had 3 or 4 of the original and they only made the 1 of the reboot. I kind of wanted to see what they were going to do.
I did too, but that's what makes me curious for this new one that's coming out. If it's going to be a direct sequel from the reboot, or if it's going to be its own standalone. Like I'm kind of hoping for a reboot. I'm kind of hoping they kind of call back to it, but I'm also like, I wouldn't be opposed to a reboot to see what they would do nowadays.
I would be okay if they did a reboot to number 2. If they were like, okay, reboot number 1 happened, now we're doing number 2, and we're going to progress on to there's 3.
I think there's 3. Yeah,
I think there was 3. Yeah. If they were to be like, hey, listen, we're just going to, the reboot to number 1 happened. This is number 2. and we're potentially going to do a number 3. I could see that being pretty good. Honestly.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see what they do. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a reboot, like we said, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed either way. I hope it's good.
Yeah, same. But like, I do like the original is good. It's a cult classic. It's heavily dated, but it's still good. But like the remake, I do love more because of, again, like other various things, but it's just done very, very well too.
The one thing that makes me like the original just as much as the reboot was the kid in both of them. Like the original Damien, because like he's more of a kid, whereas like the reboot, you can he's got that like, I am the son of the devil, feel and look to him, because he never smiles in the reboot, except for like when someone gets hurt really, really bad. Like the one thing that I will praise both films for is the scene where the priest gets impaled and then fucking struck by lightning. I was like, oh,
literally the scene I'd always think about when I think about that movie.
Yeah. Like that's the one that just stuck with me. But one thing I will praise heavily on the reboot for it is the fact that it was around that time where I was like more interested in gore and guts and everything like that. And it showed more of that, like the mom, like if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen this nearly 20-year-old movie of the reboot, the mom, I love you, Damien, steps off of the window ledge and just falls like 5 stories. Everyone's like, oh, I was watching that and I was like, oh my God.
Like me and my group of friends, we watched that part. We were just like, "Fuck yeah!" What's like another good one that we can go off of? Because like I there's a lot. We were going down the list and then we kind of like lost it.
You have, let's see,
one, or not controversial one, but like it's not a direct sequel or reboot, but it's in the realm of like retelling reboot. Jaws and Deep Blue Sea, like that's one that. Jaws, I think, even when I watched it, I didn't think it was like horrifying. It didn't make me scared of sharks or anything. But when you look back when it was released, 1000% can see why that would incite panic. Like, it's like reading or listening onto the radio back in the 30s, 40s when George Orwell did War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Like, over a radio. It's like, how do you know what's real, what's not? Like, a horror movie or someone on the radio kind of doing that stuff for entertainment value. It's like, okay, I don't think it's going to affect me long term. It's just a movie. But how many beaches suffered from it and how many like fucking slaughters on sharks did happen because of that movie? Yeah.
I mean, and going back to the original War of the Worlds, that caused such a manic panic. No pun intended. No rhyme intended either. But a manic panic among the masses where it was like, is this really happening? Are we under attack? And then at the end of it, it was just like, story was brought to you by, it was like, oh, thank God.
People. Yeah. It scared a lot of people. And that's what like Jaws did. And then like, that's why I say with the quote unquote reboot version of a Deep Blue Sea being a shark movie centered around, sharks outsmarting and being like very predatorial and whatnot. I liked it. I love like when they kind of do that. It's like how I said with Hollow Man, how it's not directly saying it's the Invisible Man, but it's like retelling that story.
Yeah. Another one that's kind of in the same realm is My Bloody Valentine. Like, I like it and I don't, for the simple fact that like the reboot was more focused on the 3D aspect because that's when we had that whole resurgence of like...
There was all the 3D, because that was a big 80s thing. And then they really started bringing that back with like Final Destination, My Bloody Valentine. What else was there? I think Avatar was around that same time where you could watch Avatar in 3D. Like I didn't mind the 3D aspect of it. It really definitely like added to it, which was pretty cool. But like if you watch it without 3D, the movie's fucking pretty bad.
Yeah, that's why they sold like 2 different versions of the DVD too. You had like the regular one,
the glass,
and then the one that came with like 2 3D glasses, so like you and another friend could watch it in 3D. And then if you had like a 4th friend, they had to like buy the DVD too, so that way they could like you and 2 other friends
with you.
So and then. Right after that is when we got that fucking, oh my God, we had the 3DS, we had the 3D TVs, we had the freaking 3D movies. Everything was just 3D. And you're like, oh my God.
I'm so tired. Give me something cooler or something different.
Yeah. Cause like as much as I liked My Bloody Valentine, cause I'm no way ashamed of it, or I will tell anybody who will listen, I'm a big Supernatural fan, because that was right around the time that I moved from my home state of Colorado down to Florida. We didn't have like a whole lot of like TV that I like to watch. So I kind of watched Smallville on the CW, which was the WB back in the day. And then it went from Smallville being the only show that I watched to being Supernatural and Smallville, because Smallville would air an episode and then Supernatural would air an episode right after that. It introduced me to Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki. And I loved the fact that Jensen Ackles was in My Bloody Valentine. So I
was literally getting into that as well, because I was going to bring up, since you brought up My Bloody Valentine, I was like, I honestly I didn't fall into the Supernatural fandom. I think that show's still going, or it's ended. I don't know, because I just know that
it ended.
Okay. Yeah. Because everybody
did 15 seasons. It went from 05 to 2020. Oh
my God. Because I remember when that was a big thing. I remember like going to school and everyone talking about that show. It just never was my thing. And even when I did watch it, I only got up to like season 5, maybe 6. Maybe.
Okay.
So I did give it a shot, and I did enjoy some of the stuff that I got out of it. Don't get me wrong. It's still a fine show. It just wasn't my show.
Yeah.
But I always think like that show did bring them to the movies and their like fandom and everything like that, because like I was one of the reasons why I wanted to see My Bloody Valentine, the reboot, was I was like, yeah, Jensen Ackles in that. I want to see how he is in a horror movie. And then the same aspect of Friday the 13th. I'll say Friday the 13th being a cult classic. The first one, the second one, and the third one, I feel like are the main groupage when people think of the Friday movies.
Yeah. Never Jason X.
Or Jason Takes Manhattan.
I like that one because of the scene where he walks up and kicks the boombox.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what pisses me off about. Like, Jason is this mindless killing machine. If he was in Manhattan, everybody would be fucking dead. No, he's just walking like, I'm going to kill these people that were on this boat. No, that's not how it would be. He would just be murdering everybody. But I digress. Like,
that's fair.
The first one was Mrs. Voorhees. And then the second one is your first real look at Jason Voorhees, the hillbilly.
Sackface.
And then you got the iconic hockey mask in 3.
Yep.
But the reboot I love is because they did a really good justice of like keeping it minimalistic, how the original was, but still keeping you on your toes as a horror movie. And the other thing I like about it is that like it gave us the one thing that we had never really seen Jason do before, which is run. Like it's that small little slight change. I remember we would always talk about back in the day, because it was Jason was just this, I'm going to walk towards you, look away, look back at him, and he's like 100 feet closer to you.
Yeah, you're like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, but and this one he's actually moving. Like it feels more menacing.
Dude, when he ran in that one, it terrified the crap out of me, because who was the one who played Jason in that one?
I don't remember who played Jason, but like seeing that happen was still like, just like Jason fucking moves. Holy fuck.
It came out in 2009. And the fact that Jared Padalecki was like one of the well, that's
what I'm saying. Like that's what made me get into watching it, was I was like, I know him from Supernatural. I want to see how he does in a horror movie.
Yeah. And like what really what terrified me was that when Jason ran, it wasn't just a big guy moving. It was a big guy with weight and strength behind him running at like a group of people.
It's very menacing.
And I was like, oh my God.
Because like, I know they're in a lot of things. Like I like Jason Ackles as a voice actor a lot more. I really do like him as a voice actor.
That was Derek Mears. How tall is he? Because he was, I think he 6'5". Jesus Christ. That's a big dude.
That's a very
and just for reference, Jared Padalecki is 6'4". And I think that Derek Mears was one of the bigger Jasons, because before that, who was the other Jasons? I forgot. Because I remember one of them. There it is. Actors who play Jason Voorhees. You had Kane Hodder, which is like he's one of the known. Yeah. Like I've had a chance to meet Derek Mears because I was in California around the same time he was at a Comic-Con, I think. And he was one of the shorter Jasons, because I think Kane Hodder was like, or no, sorry. Kane Hodder was one of the shorter Jasons, because Ari Lehman, he's the shortest Jason. Then you have Derek Mears at a staggering 6'5". And then Ken Krisinger, 6'5". Warrington Gillette, 6'1". Steve Dash, he was, he passed away in 2018. He was 74. Oh, he was, I think he was like 6'2" or something like that. So like, you know, for like Derek Mears to be 6'5" and moving the way that he did when he ran, for someone that's 5'7" or even 6 foot, like myself and Miz, I'm not going to tell whose height is which, but I need a step ladder to get to some stuff for to know that a guy that big is running at you is terrifying. Because I've played football, I've wrestled, and like seeing people that size running at you, and you're just being like, "Oh, this is gonna hurt."
Mm-hmm. No, I feel you on that,
because that's terrifying, and that's one thing I will absolutely praise in the reboot of Friday the 13th is I feel like that Jason was a lot more menacing because he wasn't scared to just freaking torture you before he killed you with his raw strength. He wasn't scared to go for the more gruesome kills.
Brutality. Yes. One that that you were asking about earlier was Omega Man and I Am Legend.
Yes, because I didn't know I Am Legend was a reboot.
Yes, I Am Legend is a reboot of the Omega Man, and Omega Man is off of a book, but it's definitely two different movies. Like in the Omega Man, it was more like they're creatures, but they look more like occult members more than anything. And then in I Am Legend, you can see the virus of like the monstrosity of what it turned the people into kind of thing. And the infection spread and so on and so forth. Two different movies, but the same concept of it. I personally like I Am Legend more just because it felt more raw in certain spots, especially with Sam the dog. Like that part still tears me up. Like I think that's like what teared everybody up, and it's just like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah. That scene when it just slowly zooms in on his face and he's just sitting there crying.
Yeah. And I think everybody felt that. I was like, other than like your actual children or kids in general, like dogs are probably like what most people graft to. And it's like such a near and dear companion. Like they're not just a house. Well, for some people, they're just house pets, which I think those people are crazy, but they're like literally one of your family members. And to like have to do that to them, it just tears you up.
Sorry, they're mowing the lawn in my apartment. So if you hear lawnmower going, but yeah, I completely agree. I remember watching that movie and then going outside and hugging my dog.
Yeah. Like I think everybody who had a dog at that time was just like when they went home or after they're done watching the movie, it was like,
I see when it comes to reboots, I catch a lot of flack for this because just as how we are with Lee Winnell and James Wan, I'm that way towards Rob Zombie because I've met him personally twice. Both times we're at concerts. If you've never been to a Rob Zombie concert, highly recommend it.
He doesn't fucking stellar show.
He really does. He had up the screens where he was showing like famous movie monsters. I might have talked about this one on the podcast before, but he put up like on the screens, it was showing different famous movie monsters like the old school Boris Karloff Frankenstein.
Yeah, he does his shows. He does a lot of nods to like the 70s and the like black and white movies, the movie monsters when he's on stage. It goes very, very well with how he does his stuff. Like he's very heavily inspired by that. You can see it in his movies for one, and number two in his music videos. But he's just does such a stellar show with like on stage bringing that to life as well.
That is one thing I will praise about Rob Zombie to this day. He's a crowd pleaser. He is a fan pleaser. Like the dude loves his fan base because he knows he can't do what he does and what he loves without his fans. And that's honestly why I love him as a person, him as a rock star, and him as a writer and director. And that's where my bias comes from for the two Halloweens that he did do versus the original Halloween 1 and 2 compared to his Halloween 1 and 2. I feel like we got more backstory out of Rob's and a lot more storytelling out of Rob's out of his only two Halloweens versus the original Halloween 1 and 2.
I mean, that's fair. I love, so the second one I feel was weaker than the first.
Yes.
But his retelling of just Halloween, if you base it just off of the first one, I love John Carpenter, as we all know. And his really set the slasher style tone of like what's set forward for the 80s like slasher films. Like I credit a lot of that to John Carpenter, and he gave us like a very menacing monster.
Yes.
I mean, like how many different variations of like mindless killing machine like that came from just John Carpenter himself because of the shape, you know? And then like the game I'm heavily influenced right now into is Dead by Daylight, and like Myers is still a very like menacing factor on it. That's who my main is in the game. Like Myers is a fucking like terrifying thing to go against sometimes.
He's quiet. He's patient. He's methodical.
He keeps you on your toes, especially because like now, like whenever we encounter a Myers, it's like, fuck, is this just scratch mirror Myers? Is this jump scare Myers? Is this
Tombstone Myers?
Is this Tombstone Myers where he's perma 3 and now I got to worry about being insta killed?
Is this Speedy Boy Myers where he's got all the perks that makes him to where you can't jump out of a window?
Yeah. Like he's just super Zoom boy. Like Zombies brings like a little bit more of like a human element, because like it sucks. Like every time I watch that movie, I'm just like always like finding myself torn when Danny Trejo's character is killed. He's just like, Mikey,
yeah,
you said you were a boy, you know, like just that, like you see that separation of Myers being like, I'm just, you know, being myself. I'm just going to stay in this room, whatever, to like something snapped, someone took my mask kind of thing. Like, I want to kill. I'm going to go on a murderous rampage, and just that menacing fucking just monster of a man.
Who played Myers in that one? Because he was a big dude. Because
he just fucking just muscular monster, man.
Yeah,
like, it was so good. I really, really liked how it was done. It was Tyler Mane.
Yeah. Because how big is that? I know he's a big dude, but how big? He's 6'9". Jesus.
He's a monster of a man.
Dude's got a chin on him though. He's got that fucking jawline. I'll give him that. But
yeah, he's a monster of a man. And seeing him in that film, just like again.
He's in Deadpool and Wolverine?
Apparently. Okay. They might bring him back as Sabretooth or something. I don't know. But he just, again, commanding presence, silent, just destructiveness is so good. And like Myers in that one feels more threatening than John Carpenter's one. But like John Carpenter set that staple of being just, because John Carpenter's isn't so much the slasher film, because there's not that much blood, but it's for like shock and awe of its time, of just maniac silent monster.
Yes. I like the thing that I like, because I hail Rob Zombie's Halloweens and Carpenter's Halloweens as two separate iterations, whereas Rob Zombie was more of the gore, the menacingness, the destructiveness, the fucking methodical aspect of Myers. John Carpenter's is that what makes Michael Myers scary. It's the fact that he doesn't feel pain. He doesn't talk. He moves and you don't hear him behind you. And he's this giant, menacing, strong figure. But
that's also where we got the trope for the slasher movies of like, oh, he's a million miles away. Oh, fuck, he's right there.
It's that whole, like when you were a kid and you saw like the Ed, Ed and Eddie where like he reached in from like the corner and all you saw was just like,
yeah, exactly. Just out of nowhere. And it's still like a stereotype that we still see into a lot of horror movies still. And it's just still done very, very well that way. Like I still call back to like The Conjuring, where it's the demon towards the end of the movie. Like it's down at the bottom of the stairs, lightning flash. Oh no, it's in front of your face. It still goes back to that. Like John Carpenter started that whole trend in some ways.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I think like the little side note here to like scary movies. The funniest comment I've ever seen was when they I think it was on a YouTube video or something like that, where they showed the lipstick demon pop up behind. Yeah. And someone commented and said, I was scratching my nuts in the middle of that movie when this scene happened. I almost ripped my penis off. And I about fucking died because
oh my God.
That scene scared the shit out of me. I lost an entire bucket of popcorn because like I was sitting there and I'm like looking at me. I'm a fat kid at heart. I eat a lot, so don't judge me, please. I got the large bucket of popcorn when I watched that movie. and I didn't know what to expect from Insidious. I really didn't. But when the lipstick demon happened and he was right there and he was just, and the jump scare happened, that bucket of popcorn went flying. Like someone 3 aisles behind me, all I heard was, what the fuck? So I have John Carpenter to thank for like the funny moments in horror movies for me.
Well, yeah,
the jump scares.
The jump scares were like, what I loved is the 70s and 80s had jump scares without like being too jump scary like nowadays, where they're like,
yeah, where it's like reliant
pause, you know what's coming, jump scare happens, and then you kind of like cut to something else. Like I remember that being like a huge staple, and like I was so tired of that with horror movies for a long time. It was just jump scare for the sake of jump scare, and we got a lot of video games that were that way that I also fucking hated, because like, yes, I like jump scares, but I don't like it to be the sole and only thing, because I feel like it's just like, okay, first one happened, I got scared, now I got to deal with like 70 more. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, like what was a heavy jump scare reliant movie?
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, Paranormal Activity relied too much on the jump scares for me, but
I mean, but it worked. It spawned the whole franchise, and it's I credit it too, because like it did like the Saw and Blair Witch thing, whereas they had a very small budget and capitalized and made a very scary movie based off of that. But again, for me, the jump scare aspect was what ruined it. But that's what, like, again, John Carpenter really brought in, that jump scare. Like, he really was one of those, like, goes back to that fundamental, and then seeing it in some ways, ruined a lot of things. But like seeing it in zombies, also doing that jump scare without being too reliant on just being jump scary. It was like jump scare, then murder. Like zombies, I feel like his Halloween had the jump scares, but it was also story driven. Whereas like all of his movies are, you got the Lords of Salem, you've got the Devil's Own. That's the Lords of Salem.
Yeah, you've got
talking about like his remake, right?
Yeah, his remake of Lords of Salem, I think he did very well on. Devil's Own. Oh God, House of a Thousand Corpses. Like he has his jump scare moments.
He does, no, but it's not like his whole thing. But like,
he likes to make you feel uneasy.
Yeah, everybody I've talked to, I feel like I'm so happy, because like it's 50-50, I should say, most of the time, but it's from the House of a Thousand Corpses series, Devil's Rejects and Three from Hell.
Devil's Rejects.
Like everyone loves the Devil's Rejects.
Yes.
I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's really, really good. I'm glad we got more Captain Spaulding out of it. I really am. But
may he rest in peace.
Sid.
That hurt.
House of a Thousand Corpses, I feel like, not even the fact that it's his first, but like just how well he did as his first film, and it brought so much to the table. Like I love House of a Thousand Corpses. Like if I had it, like any day of the week, will always choose that movie as like my favorite zombie film still to this day. And he's done quite a bit of films that it's like, again, the Halloween reboots. I really did like his telling of, again, like Lords of Salem was like whatever, but he's done a lot with what he's given. But like just House is a staple. Like if you need to watch that movie, it is so good.
You've got the Monsters that he redid, which I have yet to watch. Three from Hell, 31. He did, what is this one? Rob Zombie Horror Picture Show. That one was really good in 2014. You've got Lords of Salem, El Super Beasto, Halloween 1 and 2. Planet Terror. I forgot he had his hand in that. Grindhouse, that Planet Terror, Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses. Like you can tell where he takes his times, even in the Lords of Salem, because one thing that I will always accredit to knowing that it's a zombie movie is that his wife has some part in the movie at some point.
Oh yeah, he's always doing something with his movies, and like she's in them all the time. It's great, it really is. But like, his telling of Halloween in some ways I love more than Carpenter's. But like the respect is given, because like it's John Carpenter. Like he set forth a very good. Again, as much as like sometimes it's overdone with the slashers, like it's given us some of the most iconic slashers. You know?
Yeah. Because like I mean, before John Carpenter had Michael Myers, there wasn't really like a slasher flick other than like
there was
Psycho.
I mean, you had Psycho, you had Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Town That Dreaded Sundown, but like they were in some way, shape, or form. What, the Town That Dreaded Sundown?
No, I think Michael Myers came out before Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Did it? I don't think so, because Texas Chainsaw was like 75. I thought like Carpenter's was like 77.
I mean, I could be wrong. Okay, so Massacre came out 74.
74. Okay.
And then when did
I want to say Halloween was like 77.
When did Halloween come out? 78. Okay, so I was wrong.
78.
My bad.
Yeah. No, so, like I said, you had American Psycho. You had Psycho. You had Texas Chainsaw. And The Town That Dreaded Sundown before it.
Yep.
Which, they are slashers, but like 2 are based off of real stories because Texas Chainsaw was based off the real story. The Town That Dreaded Sundown was based off of a true story. And then Psycho
and it also had a remake.
And it also had a remake, yes, which I do like the remake. I prefer the original, but I did like the remake. But when it came to like just slasher menacing movie was... I still credit towards John Carpenter because that gave us like a movie icon. Like, don't get me wrong, Bates is still a movie icon, but it's in different forms. It's more of like the psychological horror, like psychopath. Whereas Myers is the movie monster icon of I'm just going to kill everybody.
He's like, his motive is he just wants to kill. That's it. Like, there's no, you can't shoot your way out of it. You can't freaking stab your way out of it. That's where, like, as much as I respect Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I don't like them for the simple fact of, like, to me, I have the mentality of if I can fight it and win and have the potential to win in some way, shape, or form, it's not scary to me. Whereas, like, if I shoot, if I
burn, the car,
if I can have the potential to defend myself and win, it's not scary to me. Whereas, like, Bates, he's just a human man. Leatherface, just a human man. We've seen Michael shot, stabbed, set on fire, blinded, and he just keeps coming. Jason Voorhees, we've seen him blown up. We've seen him sent to space, regrettably. We've seen him sent to hell. We've seen him killed numerous times. Keeps coming back. Freddy, same thing. It's like
Ghostface in ways, same thing. If you really put it like into and two together, it's not really the same person, but like the spirit of Ghostface is like always around because of that same kind of aspect.
Yeah, it's just a copycat killer. Yeah, like Ghostface.
That's one that I can go off on a little tangent too. Like
Razor,
the Hellraiser, the original Clive Barker. Like fucking, I'm heavily biased with it. I love it.
I forgot who directed the new one.
Oh, I can't remember his name, but like the new one, the remake is good. So great at being a retelling of like the first 4. I would say like it does a really good of doing like the first 4 movies kind of like combined and bringing in a newer audience to that world.
Yeah. David Bruckner was the director of the new one, and Ben Collins. But it is a reboot of Clive Barker's book,
Hellraiser, and like, because Clive Barker did the movie and his novella, and it's so fucking good, and it's such a good, like, again, reboot of like bringing in that world, and again, just
see why people didn't like it.
I don't know how you didn't like it, like. They did some really fucking clean scenes in it. They did some really good like aspects of it on what did you want, like immortality, but at a price, or the fame, like just whatever your dream was. Like the way they warp it into their torture method is so good.
And I think what's the lady's name? Jamie Clayton.
Yeah.
I think she did a good job because she did
great as the Hell Priest. I fucking loved her.
And I love
commanding presence.
Yes, I would agree. Like I love the original Pinhead, aka Hell Priest, and I love Jamie Clayton just for the simple fact that both are 2 different forms of the same entity, same person, same character.
Well, that's the thing, is that the priest is like both male, female. Yes. Like it's interchangeable, like it's so good. You just cannot praise it enough.
What gets me with the original Pinhead is his voice and the fact that he likes to play with his food a little bit. Whereas Jamie Clayton's is like I'm the hell priest. I'm here because you opened the box. I'm going to fuck up your day.
Yeah.
But how am I going to do it is like the thing with her that I liked. And the original Pinhead, when he showed up in, which one was that? I think that was 3. When he showed up in the church and stuck his hands out and he goes, I am the way. And then like the glass just blew in behind him. I was just like, because I watched the original Hellraisers out of order. But
yeah, I remember we've had that conversation.
Yeah.
Watched it way out of order.
Way out of order. I think I watched the one in space first and then 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, 6, and 8. I think that's the way I watched it.
Weird ass order.
And I didn't know which one was which because I watched them before Google had a thing where it told you what order they were in. But anyways, I digress. But yeah, like that's what really made me like Pinhead as a character. I was just like, yep.
What I loved about the remake was on how some of the deaths were just so brutal on how they did it. Like my favorite scene in the whole movie, besides the ending apotheosis scene, the ascension scene, like other than that, the Nora scene just sold me.
Yeah.
Seeing her in the back of the van being disassociated with the real world and whatnot. And everyone's like, where is she? What the fuck? And everything like that. And then only like, what's her name can see her. And then just, that whole, it is just so fucking good.
I think like, as far as like brutalness goes, I think the reboot personally was a little bit more brutal than the original.
I agree. There's, like I said, for me, the way they do the ascension was like the icing on the cake. It was just, it checked all my boxes on what I was hoping for as a reboot.
You know, one reboot I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about, and I don't know why. I kind of liked it. It was the Pet Sematary and Fright Night. I liked
Fright Night. I really enjoyed. I love the reboot of Fright Night. Yeah, Colin Farrell in that is actually done really, really well. I remember like, I think it was out in high school. I think it was like 06. I'm trying to think like 05, 06 ish, maybe.
Fright Night was 2011.
2011. Oh, okay. Then I was with someone. I was trying to remember which ex was I with at that time. But it was good. Oh, I remember now. Yeah, because that's also with David Tennant in there. That's why I remember watching that movie. And the original, I appreciate because again, biasism. But when it comes to the other one, because you said Fright Night and what else? Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary. I liked the subtle change of not being the little boy, but the little girl.
Yeah.
But I just felt
that
like
hurt.
For you, I could understand. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a girl dad. I have two girls. That's all I got.
And when it comes to like the reboot of that, I felt like it's the ending that killed it for me. I liked everything else about it. Just the ending I felt like was not needed.
That's fair. Yeah. I felt the ending on that one was a little bit stronger, not better, but tone wise, it was a little bit. I
get it. I also heard like the sequel that's out right now, like Bloodlines or some shit like that, whatever. Then there's a Pet Sematary 2. I don't remember what it's called, but I heard it's like more gory in ways. But I still need to see it. I'm curious about it. It's not like new, but it's.
I'm on the fence about it. I don't really like it, but I don't really hate it. I'm kind of like, I like the gore of it. A lot of it's practical. Some of it's CGI. And, like us, between you and me, we're both, we lean more towards the practical effects versus the CGI. But if you gotta, fine, as long as it's done well. This one, for the Bloodlines one, I'm kind of on the fence about it because I feel the story's good, but it's not as direct as the reboot of the first one. It's kind of
zigzaggy.
Yeah, it's not as like, okay, the little boy gets hit by the semi. I forgot how the little girl died in the reboot. I think she got ran over. But don't quote me on that. It's been so long since I've seen it. Because I watched it in 2021-ish, back when the Backstreet Boys were on tour. Because I don't know if we're allowed to talk. I don't know if we'll get in trouble for saying what occurred during that time, but everybody wasn't allowed out of their houses. And I'm referring to the Game Grumps when I say the Backstreet Boys were on tour during that time. But yeah, I watched it on a streaming service. I think I rented it on Amazon and I liked it. The second one I watched on Hulu or Amazon. I can't remember, but it was like the story just seemed kind of muddy to me for the second one. It wasn't bad.
I want to see it still, but yeah, I get you. I get you.
And then for Fright Night, I loved Colin Farrell. He was like, it was very CGI heavy. I get that. Whereas like the original Fright Night was more practical, but like Colin Farrell was a great vampire. I would love to see him more as a horror movie villain.
Very, very good into that. And like he was also a heartthrob for that movie because I remember like a lot of my friends were just like, like, oh, Colin Farrell, look at him and how he looks. I was just like, never really thought people would have liked Colin Farrell that way.
But yeah, he did great as a vampire in that one. I thoroughly enjoyed Fright Night.
I'm not a loss for other ones. Yeah, like I was just thinking,
The Haunting, The Fog. I haven't seen Goodnight Mommy.
I haven't seen The Fog.
Fog, I enjoyed. It was another one of those ones.
Even the original and the reboot, I haven't watched either of them.
I watched the original. I didn't mind the original.
I've got one more because I didn't realize how long we were going.
The reboot had Tom Welling in it, which at the because when did this one come out? Oh God, 2005. Tom Welling was Smallville's Clark Kent at the time, and he was still doing Smallville around the same time that this came out. I think this was in between like seasons or something like that. And when he was the character, he was in The Fog because the director was Rupert Wainwright, Cooper Lane, and the writers were Cooper Lane, John Carpenter, and Deborah Hill. Deborah Hill, I know from another movie. John Carpenter, of course, and Cooper Lane, I know from another movie. The Deborah and Cooper, I know from other horror movies and other movies as well. But Tom Welling was the husband. The Fog, synopsis of it. A thick mist fall full of vengeful spirits haunts a prosperous island town off the coast of Oregon as its inhabitants try to learn their own dark secrets in order to stop it. It's been a long time since I've watched this movie. Both versions are great, but I love Tom Welling in that one because he was way out of his element. Because he went from, the big blue Boy Scout of Superman, Clark Kent coming into his own right as Superman into a horror movie aspect and playing that part very well. And his co-star was Maggie Grace and Selma Blair. I don't remember Selma Blair, but Maggie Grace.
I never got around to it. It didn't appeal to me, so I just never gave it a shot. But it's one that's been on my radar because I do hear a lot of people talk about it.
It's a good story because let's see, The Fog and The Mist came out around the same time. More people gravitated towards The Mist because of
and I didn't care for The Mist. Yeah, Stephen King. And a lot of it wasn't like those kind of movies. I don't know, just weren't my thing. Yeah, but they are cult classics. I still know a lot of people reference to them and everything. But like, I have like no other really comparisons after that because like that was like the last one I really thought of.
I've seen the original Haunting. The original Haunting was kind of.
I always think of House on a Hill, with Vincent Price, and then the reboot with Liam Neeson.
I liked both of those as well because
the '90s one is pretty cheesy and bad in ways, but no, I get it too. It's good.
The Haunting, because I watched The Haunting and The House on Haunted Hill at different times of my teenage years. I think I watched House on the Haunted Hill when I was like 12 or 13, and then I watched The Haunting when I was like 13 or 14 or 15, if I'm not mistaken. Because when did that one come out? The Haunting came out in 1999, and that one had. Let me look at the casting because I get them confused all the time. Stars we had for The Haunting, we had Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Wow. I still have a credit. Catherine Zeta-Jones did great in Wednesday, by the way, if you have not watched it.
I haven't watched Wednesday.
Still a great actress. One of my favorites. And then House on the Haunted Hill. I think I watched. No. I watched The Haunting in 99 and around 2099 because I was still in Colorado at the time. And then I watched House on the Haunted Hill when I lived down in Florida. So that was like mid 2000s. Pre-2010. The Haunting is one of the reasons why I wasn't allowed to watch scary movies for a little bit, but I loved both because I watched those ones actually made me watch the originals because I didn't know they were remakes until my grandpa.
Jeffrey Rush was in House on Haunted Hill in 99 as well, but they were always like coincided with the first two each other because they kind of had like the same artwork on the cover, and people got confused a lot. And it was like one did better than the other, so the other one left theater, just that one waited in there longer. I remember that whole thing because everyone was just like, "Oh, did you watch House on Haunted Hill? No, I saw The Haunting," or vice versa.
Yeah, and what was really funny is my grandpa, he was born in 1952. He saw like the originals of like, you know, everything pretty much, because he grew up in that time frame when like not every house had a TV, not every house had, you know, a radio. Like, you know, you could freaking go to the gas station and get a pack of bubble gum for a penny. Like that was his era.
It's so weird hearing that, man. Like I remember talking to my dad, like little story time, I apologize, but like I remember talking to my dad one time and just being like, man, it's so expensive to go to the movies. And he's like, I remember I could have a quarter, get 2 pieces of candy and do a double feature and still have change left over. I was like, for a fucking quarter? What?
Yeah. That threw me for a loop because my grandpa, he talked about, what movie was it? It was because when me and Ms. grew up, we still had drive-in theaters were a thing. They were still a thing. They
were harder. They weren't as hard to find. We'll put it that way. They were going out of style, but you didn't have to look really hard like today.
Yeah.
Like, you have to like, is there even a drive-in theater around me? What's a drive-in theater?
Yeah, like basically, for those that don't know, that are for our younger audience, basically what a drive-in theater was, depending on where you lived, because I lived in the Midwest, the last drive-in theater I went to was Toy Soldiers in 96. So I was living in Michigan at the time. And the way that our drive-in theater worked was that you got a double feature for $15 for 2 adults and 1 child, which I was the child. And I was sitting up front and on a bucket seat of a station wagon. And what you did is you got these speakers that attached to your window and you rolled them up a little bit with your car still on, so that we had AC, and then you didn't have
it or whatever.
Yeah. And you got your concession, like you parked your car first, you got your car set up for the little speakers that attached to your windows. They had this little clip, slid over the top, rolled the window up so that way they didn't fall out or break your window, which I found that out the way. Oops, sorry. But you rolled them up a little bit, and then while the ads were playing before the movies, because they were telling you this summer we're coming, like before those like aired, you would walk up to the concession stand and get what you needed, or some places had a drive-through concession stand, which you bought your ticket, drove through, got your concession, went and parked the car, and then you hooked up the speakers or turned your radio to a specific station that was attuned to the movie that was playing on whichever screen you were facing. And our drive-in theater was so small that they gave us the speakers, and you had one screen for a parking lot of 50 to 60 cars. And you faced towards that one screen with the speaker on both sides. So you had the surround sound feeling and stuff like that. Sadly, those have gone out of style. Those were a great date night.
Oh yeah, no, they were fantastic, and or not even just for date night. That is also like just fun to do in general, because it reminds me of like the times of just like, you know, what'd you do after school on a Friday? We went and fucking got a Papa Murphy's or a Mountain Mike's pizza and fucking went to Blockbuster, Home Video, or whatever rental place and got like a game. And then, but what were we doing all weekend? That's what you were gonna do.
Yep.
Like those times I feel like aren't happening anymore. It makes me feel weird.
It makes me sad because like I feel like those times are such an experimental time for not just like us as kids, but people in general, because like you couldn't figure out the synopsis of a movie by just going on to Google and being like, hey, what's the fire starter from 2022 about that's airing on Stars for me to stream at the house?
Watch it or trust other people's opinions.
Yeah. And it was like, and it wasn't so convoluted, like Whispers from the Shadows told me about this movie from 1989, and I've never watched it because I was born in 2002.
Is there any other, a little tangent right there, and I love it.
Yeah, we did. Let's see. Aside from like the main list, I think we hit like all of them. We hit the Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Friday the 13th.
Actually, we touched on it, but we did say about how much the gore factor with it. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. I mean, you've got like a lot of the Stephen Kings, because you've got Pet Sematary. We talked about that.
But like those are also 2 different products of their time.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's still fair.
I mean, Tim Curry is an absolute legend as Pennywise. And when he did his version of Pennywise, it was, for a miniseries. So he had like time to sit in between episodes
shootings and when they're recording and so on and so forth. But what also like it's also a product of his time, because I was at 90, 91, and like that, yeah. It's been a staple of like when you think of horror movies, like especially like clowns, when you think of horror movie clowns, or you think of clowns in general, you immediately go to Stephen King's It, and you go to Tim Curry. Skarsgård's was like very not looked happily upon when it was first coming out. Yeah. But like, I love the first chapter. The first chapter of I like both. I like both too, don't get me wrong, but the first chapter of It did such a good job of like really modernizing from like the 80s to when they go forward, or like 90s to go forward 27 years into current day. The way they updated that was really, really good. I felt like that pretty much what resonated with a lot more people.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I mean, I think that honestly, when it comes to certain horror movies, because like I think the modernizing of reboots is a good thing, but I also think that when they do the reboot, if they bring it to like, I keep doing this and I'm so sorry, but when they bring it to like modern times, and the modern time is like 2003, I'm just like, ow.
It does very much feel that way. It's like
you're just like,
but I mean, like we covered most of the big ones, and I'm very, very like looking forward to see what anybody says about that. Like, what are some of your favorite remakes that we didn't touch, or what different opinions you have? Do you like the originals more or the remakes more?
Yeah, I mean the town that dreaded sundown, that got 2 remakes. Amityville Horror got 1. Body Snatchers, that was a remake. The Crazies,
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Crazies, the Strangers that are coming out with a reboot. There's a lot that's coming out as well that I'm looking forward to, not looking forward to, and severely going to judge harshly. Primarily right now, it's going to be Nosferatu that's on my shit bucket list right now. But I'm hoping to, once they actually have trailers released for it, I am going to be more excited for it. But I'm so fucking nervous for that movie. I really am.
One that I'm seeing that we didn't really touch on was The Wrong Turn. How that kind of got 2 reboots. I like the one that we got in 2000 and whatever. I think it was like 2003, 2004. And the 2021 or 2020
isn't even like a reboot. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah. I like them both in their own like respective entities, but like, I mean, they weren't even like, they're not even really like a compare and contrast.
No, because let's say the reboot in like 2020 is like, I never saw it, but my wife was telling me about it. She said
2021. I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever year it was. It was more like no mutants or inbreds. It was just like crazy people, or it just wasn't the same. Pretty much is what I thought. So I have no opinion on that one. I didn't even know about it. The Crazies was never one of my favorites. The one thing I will say that I did touch on, but I didn't say why I loved it, was Hills Have Eyes. The original I really love just because it's classic. But the reboot, I just love on how brutal it was, especially what made me fall in love with it right away was when the old man blew his head off with a shotgun.
Yeah, that one, that was, oh my God, that freaked me out.
That right there is always what's stuck in my mind, because it's just like me and my sister watching it, we're like, oh, fuck yeah.
And I was like, ooh. But yeah, like, I mean, other than that, we got The Uninvited, Let the Right One In, Let Me In,
Quarantine, The Grudges, Ring.
The funny games, that one was kind of I didn't watch the original.
Yeah, I haven't seen either.
The remake just wasn't, I didn't like the movie. I didn't. Goodnight Mommy, never seen it. We talked about The Thing, the Halloweens, which for some reason this list includes the 2018, but that wasn't a reboot. That was a direct sequel from Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Halloween, like, God damn it, John Carpenter, I love you. But the fact that your entire franchise got a reboot based off of the 2018 just messed my brain up entirely. Like, Laurie Strode is no longer the little sister.
I haven't seen the new trilogy. I heard the first 2 iterations into it were great. The third one was controversial. I just remember it was very controversial because a lot of people didn't agree with what happened. I
liked the last one up to the ending, because of how the ending didn't seem very
controversial. I heard it was very,
I
loved it or you hate it.
Yeah, I didn't like the ending of it. It was It was okay. So yeah, like if you're wanting to get into horror movies and you're watching the Halloween franchise, watch the old ones first. I highly recommend it. Then follow those up with the Rob Zombies. If you want to, you don't have to. I know not everybody's the biggest fan of those two. I love them just because of my biases towards Rob Zombie. And then watch the 2018, 2020, and then the 2023 trilogy.
2023, yeah. Something like that.
Because I know they did Halloween Ends and then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, like kind of like within a year of each other. And I just, I don't really like it. Then you have Firestarter. That one was okay. That was another Stephen King remake. He's got a lot on this list.
I forgot about that. I actually really enjoyed the remake, but I still prefer the original over it. Because we're talking Stephen King, I was all like running down the list. Carrie.
Oh, yeah. I liked both, but part of me kind of prefers the older one because you kind of see more pain in her.
I think the original is just far superior. Don't get me wrong. But the reboot did a very good, like, again, modernization of retelling that story, and pretty brutal on some spots of it. And I did enjoy that. But I think the original was still better. But it's always like, I always judge every reboot of that movie based on how they do the bathroom scene.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's a really fucked part.
Yeah. Because I remember the original was way more brutal because like the bullying back in the original Carrie was a lot different than the bullying.
It resonates with more people because the original, I felt like you could still feel those side effects all the way up until like the mid 2000s, early 2000s, mid to late 2000s. And then just like the 2010s is where like I feel like all the stuff that like people used to get picked on drifted away a lot more, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because I remember like in the 90s and like early 2000s, it was like your boys had only boy things, girls had their only girl things. Like you couldn't be a boy who had any type of color other than like what are boy colors, you know?
Yeah, black, you had your blues, your black, red,
blue, and then like any girly colors, yellow, orange, pink, stuff Purples. Like that was only for girls. You weren't allowed to have that be on any type of like boy stuff unless it was like a Pokemon shirt or like something from like a movie cartoonish kind of thing.
Yeah,
and so like I feel like the original Carrie still holds more of a grip on most of the generations who have seen it. And then the newer one was for obviously that generation, but I still feel like you can still relate to the older generation and the newer generation with that reboot.
Yeah, I can see that because
the original one just, I think, affects more people.
Yeah, because I mean, that was like from our parents / grandparents, depending on, you know, like what area, what age you are. That affected like our age groups to like our parents / grandparents. And then the newer one is like us to our kids, you know, type of bullying, which is because, I mean, when me and Ms. were kids and teenagers, online bullying wasn't really a thing.
It was all in person.
Yeah, it was just like, this person removed me from their top 5 on MySpace. Oh, I'm going to tell everyone that they shit themselves at band camp.
It was tomorrow like school. If it was any type of social thing, it was like a MySpace kind of drama or a Tumblr kind of drama. But like when you look at the elementary and middle school, it was like if you were in any way, shape, or form watching any type of like anime or cartoons, you were picked on. If you read comic books, you were picked on. If you were good in school, you were picked on, kind of stuff. So like a lot of us had to shelter that in. Like like now our age people are able to be the nerds that they were because we suffered through all that stuff. And that's where I feel like, again, it's not as predominant now. Like everyone wants to be that nerd and so on and so forth nowadays in some ways, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it if you do or don't want to be that way. If you want to be a gym bro or you could do both. Like, I mean, I know how many people that work out are just fucking huge ass nerds.
there was an old workout partner of mine that to this day, he still wears like all of his gym gear and stuff like that is anime inspired. Like he's got wrist wraps with the berserker sacrificial symbol that Guts has on the back of his neck theme. Like it has that symbol on his wrist wraps, on his knee braces. He's got Deku from My Hero Academia. He wears tank tops and shirts that are all of them are Marvel, DC, anime.
Because it's much more accepted nowadays. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's much more accepted now, but like back in the day it wasn't. And it's like I feel like Carrie touches on that modernization of it.
Like when me and Miz were kids, you couldn't be a boy and like Sailor Moon. Now it's just like, oh, have you seen the new, or have you watched Fruits Baskets? And everyone's like, yeah. Like
you can talk about it openly and not have to worry about like backlash
as much. Yeah. It's great. And it's crazy to see because like, me and Miz are big comic book nerds of our generation. Like we would have been the ones that were like, oh, you like Spawn? Oh, you like Deadpool? Oh, you like Superman, Batman?
Yeah.
Fill in the superhero there.
For nerds and stuff like that. Fucking loser.
Yeah. Like now it's just like, hey man, have you seen the new Batman comic that came out 2 weeks ago? Like, no. It's like, oh, Batman gets a power ring, or, you know, like it's
just much more open.
Yeah. And whereas like the time
sorry to drama drop on there. Wasn't trying to drama drop for us.
Yeah, like it's really awesome to see that it's like more widely accepted. Whereas like, you know, like for me, I feel like horror is very subjective. Like anime, manga, comic books, action heroes, movies in general outside of the horror genre are more niche. You have your action movie nerds, you have your superhero movie nerds, and everything in between, where like when me and Miz would try to talk about like Jeepers Creepers in school, there was like maybe like one or two other kids that liked it. And now we have a podcast that's dedicated to this specific niche genre, and we love it, and we love hearing feedback on it, and it's great to me. I think personally.
Oh yeah, no, I 1,000% agree. It's just funny seeing how, because I remember you were a weirdo if you liked horror, and now it's like so many people love horror, and you can just talk about it. It's a fantastic thing, and I just feel like it's I feel like it's the one genre that like takes so many different risks and just does some different things that just have fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, or when it does take itself seriously, you're just like, ooh, we got something new.
Yeah. I like the campy B-class horror movie genre that's like doesn't take itself seriously, but I also like the ones that like do take themselves seriously.
Oh yeah, like I said, when it comes to like serious ones, like I still go back to like fucking Black Phone. Like it's fucking phenomenal. Or Smile. Like the way they do things is just so good.
I like practical effects. I'll always love practical effects.
Yeah, always. Like you'll know. If you watch enough horror movies, you'll see why practical effects are amazing.
Yeah.
But what are some of your favorite horror remakes or reboots, or would you prefer the original or the reboot better?
Yeah. Like what's your preference on this subject? Like we want to know, please. It's not a, oh, you're feeding us or you're feeding into our ego type of thing. It's like,
it's an interaction we want to have with you guys.
Yeah. And we love that type of stuff. Like we feed off of each other's energy just as much as we feed off of your guys's. And it's not like our thought process is a one all end all be all type of thing. It's subjective, just like horror. We love it.
Oh yeah. Always 24/7, baby.
But I mean, like, I think we covered a lot of the big ones, and
we covered a lot of the big ones.
Yeah. If we missed your favorite or we missed one that you didn't hear us talk about, please let us know in any way, shape, or form. We'd love to hear that type of feedback.
Anything that you guys like agree, disagree, but look forward to it.
Yeah. As always, we'll see you next time.
Bye guys.
Bye.